2009 is almost behind us, and I'm sad to say that, despite my best efforts, I failed to play every single game that was released over the last 365 days. I know, my bad. Still, I did manage to play an unhealthy number of games, and here's the 10 that made the most lasting impression on me. I haven't been a huge fan of Activision's increasingly mercenary approach to rhythm games over the past few years, but I appreciate the risks it took with DJ Hero. From the mashed up music that fills its soundtrack to the esoteric turntable controller, DJ Hero lacks some of the accessibility that has made its six-stringed forebear a household name. But it takes on rhythm action, makes it feel a world apart from anything the genre has seen in a while, particularly outside of Japan. Though it lacks even the illusion that you'll be able to parlay your plastic turntablism into any sort of real skills on the wheels of steel, there's still something about the way you twiddle the cutoff knob and slam the crossfader back and forth that makes it feel true to the source material. It's admittedly hard to choke down DJ Hero's initial $120 asking price, but did I mention that it features Daft Punk as playable characters? Price tag justified. Of all the old Nintendo properties to try and revive, Punchout definitely seems like one of the tougher nuts to crack, simply because so much of the appeal is rooted in nostalgia for its memorably over-the-top and, borderline racist fighters and their woefully telegraphed fighting styles. It's such a simple, dated formula that fiddling with the specifics of how it plays or trying to manufacture much more depth would destroy any resemblance to the game being revived. So Nintendo did the smart thing with Punch-Out, and rather than try and make something that even remotely resembled the sweet science, it changed as little as possible without literally re-releasing Punch-Out for the NES. As crass as that might sound, the results worked astonishingly well, to the point that the only way a follow-up could possibly improve on it would be the return of Mike Tyson. What can I say? I am a unrepentant sucker for Ubisoft's dizzyingly dumbass rabbit monsters, even if I haven't sunk much time into any of their annual minigame collections past the first one. While Rabbids Go Home, which departs from the minigame formula in favor of something that vaguely resembles Katamari turned inside out, isn't necessarily more technically sophisticated than the minigame format, it serves as a much better delivery mechanism for the existential bliss that I get from those screaming cretins. If the fine line between freewheeling fun and ear-ringing insanity could be summed up in a video game, that game would be Rabbids Go Home. Monolith has shown a real knack for pairing profoundly creepy and unsettling subject matter with first-person action that is both viscerally satisfying and technically assured. And the veteran developer puts this unique skill set to terrific use with Fear 2 Project Origin. Now, like its predecessor, Fear 2 offers a seedy blend of science fiction and the supernatural, but it's a much tighter package, more concerned with an atmosphere of tension than jump scares that drops you into some really intense firefights at an alarming rate. This is less a game than it is a roller coaster ride filled with ghosts and guts, but I'll be damned if it wasn't entertaining. Okay, so yeah, Fallout 3 came out last year. Got a calendar. But it didn't really creep its way into my bloodstream like radiation poisoning until 2009. And oh brother, did it get a hold of me, what good. It was an unusual experience, one that I found to be kind of dry and tedious for the first dozen hours or so, yet I still could not rip myself away from this incredibly bleak, unapologetically violent, and darkly humorous world. And before I knew it, I had not only fought my way through the main campaign, I had also sought out nearly every single side quest. Part of the reason I'm comfortable putting an 08 release on this list is the fact that Bethesda really cranked out the downloadable content for Fallout 3 this year. Like the main game, the DLC was often uneven, but it was still a big contributing factor in Fallout 3's ability to keep my attention for the better half of the year. The Beatles Rock Band is the one game that had a real significant impact on my life outside of games. my latent, long-standing Beatles appreciation developed into a virulent case of full-blown Beatlemania with the release of the Beatles rock band, and for me, 2009 was a better year for it. Other than its extremely clever, quasi-autobiographical approach to the Beatles' career and the general reverence that it showed for the band, this was still pretty much rock band as you know it. But when you pair the most reliable developer of rhythm games with one of the most well-known, prolific, and influential bands in the history of pop music, how can you go wrong? In more ways than one, Modern Warfare 2 suffers from its pathological need to outdo its extremely excellent predecessor by an order of magnitude. While improbable, the Call of Duty 4 story had a certain rip-from-the-headlines quality to it that at least made it seem feasible. Modern Warfare 2, on the other hand, leaps feet first into a surreal and relentless globo-political nightmare scenario that has more in common with a disaster movie than any kind of military excursion. It can be an exhausting experience that doesn't always earn its crazy twists, but none of this stops Modern Warfare 2 from being simply hypnotic. Even without much interest in the game's multiplayer components, there's no question for me that Modern Warfare 2's single-player campaign is one of the most bombastic and memorable of the year. I had a real warts and all appreciation for the original Assassin's Creed. The elegance of the urban traversal and the visceral satisfaction of the up-close and personal assassinations were worth overlooking the rough edges, but no such apologies are needed for Assassin's Creed 2. Sure, there's something a little on the nose about the new assassin having 2 wrist blades, but everything else, from the stunning Renaissance setting to the oddly compelling economic system, complemented gameplay that refined and elaborated on what was great about the original. And hell, even the double blade thing gets put to very satisfying use. Assassin's Creed 2 is a game of remarkable quality on its own, but it also takes the right steps with the fiction to turn Assassin's Creed from a flawed but novel game into a franchise I actually care about. Consider this a mea culpa for my initial appraisal of Arkham Asylum. I had a deep skepticism going in, which I mostly blame on my contrarian nature. For a comic book licensed game from a developer without much of a track record, it was getting an inordinate amount of pre-release buzz, something I found very easy to chalk up to everyone's overrunning enthusiasm for The Dark Knight. And while this is an incredible meditation on the qualities that make Batman such a compelling figure, that doesn't limit Arkham Asylum's appeal to comic book nerds. This is a highly focused and deliberately paced game that finds appreciably unique ways to approach such action-adventure staples as hand-to-hand combat, stealth, and puzzle solving in ways that serve the character and the setting with an unnerving efficiency. Uncharted 2 Among Thieves is the rare game that doesn't just capitalize on the best things about games, it transcends them. Technically, this is a game virtually without peer, featuring some of the most naturalistic characters, richly detailed locations, and unbelievable set pieces I've ever seen in a game. There's a classic rhythm to this story about a decent, devil-may-care treasure hunter racing against a genuinely scary-ass villain to recover an ancient artifact of supernatural significance, but it's delivered with more casual nuance than most games can muster. This globe-trotting matinee adventure finds one of the most relatable and quick-witted video game protagonists in recent memory in Nathan Drake, whose utter contempt for helicopters just makes him that much more endearing to me personally. It's telling that Nathan himself is usually just as astonished as you are by the impossible scrapes he manages to make it out of in one piece. On top of a gripping story that manages to avoid taking itself too seriously, there's also a surprisingly well-crafted multiplayer mode that makes smart use of the solid gunplay and climbing mechanics that help define the feel of the single-player experience. The parts might all seem standard enough, but Uncharted 2's success isn't based on innovation, it's how the ideas are executed.